My wife always had to treat me so poorly, so I decided I'm going to get married to another wife and have my first wife be my maid. So that's exactly what I did. I, 23 male, made the cardinal mistake of my Indians, which is marrying young when I wasn't emotionally or financially ready. My wife and I knew each other from school. Both of us did not go to college, and we reconnected a couple years after graduation. I was working in retail, and she wasn't really doing anything. She'd always lived off with her parents and didn't even move out. She always struggled with keeping jobs, and she probably got fired from like 5 minimum wage jobs after graduation. When we reconnected, we instantly hit it off, and against all better judgment, we decided to get married. The problem was this: we both had nothing. I was struggling to pay rent in this tiny one-bedroom apartment, and my job was barely getting me by. I didn't even have a car, and just took the bus everywhere. On the other side, she was unemployed and didn't seem to plan on getting a job anytime soon. Literally, all of my friends advised me to not get married in general, not specifically to her. But I was dumb and impulsive, and we took the step anyways. Her parents were fed up with her leeching off of them, and they were more than happy to have her out of the house. They didn't even care if I was dead broke, or the condition she'd be living in. They trusted that she would make do, and they just let her go. Ironically, they always came up with a bunch of excuses not to visit. I think after she left the house, they were so relieved they could finally start living, and they were rarely at home and never wanted us to go. They also never visit us in our apartment, even though we weren't that far. Upon marriage, my wife and I agreed that we would both work and make do together. She promised me that she would find a job, and that she would help around with rent and expenses. Of course, that did not happen, and she would always make some excuses, and eventually she told me that she wanted to be a stay-at-home wife, and that was that. That thing that annoyed me, though, the most, that I didn't even realize, was how much she would be pushy. I didn't have a lot of money, but she would always ask for a ton of money to buy useless stuff. She would take the money meant for the house, buy clothes with half of it, and any time I tried to discuss her spending habits, she would tell me that I was her husband, and that it was my job to make her happy and provide for her. Sometimes I'd find myself borrowing money from friends just to pay off installments on these useless gizmos that she purchased online. It was getting way too much, but I wanted to make her happy. Anytime we would see others who were more fortunate, she would just subtly guilt-trip me by saying stuff like, "Look at them, they probably go to the fancy restaurants often." Or she would always point out other people's stuff, like their cars or houses or whatever, and always made me feel worse about myself and capabilities. A couple years have gone by, and things were hard but somewhat stable. We upgraded to a 2-bedroom apartment that I found a good rent deal on. She was still staying at home, and I was busting my butt getting money, but it seemed like nothing satisfied her, and no matter how much I made, it never felt enough of her. Of course, as marriage goes, we started arguing and things weren't always peachy. Once things had settled down, and we became in a better position, we started to have the kids argument. We weren't financially comfortable, but we were doing much better than before. I opened up the kids' discussion several times, not right then and there, but as a future plan. I was shocked to see how much she was against this idea, and she flat out told me that she never wants to have kids. I tried to reason with her, but she was extremely stubborn and would not change her mind. I'd always wanted to be a father, and this was important to me. I wanted to have that feeling, but she wasn't interested in the slightest in being a mother. At that point, I realized just how immature and irresponsible she really was. She did not want to work, didn't want to have kids, and just wanted to live off everybody else. We had a big argument about the whole thing where, at the end, she told me that if I wanted kids this badly, I should go find another woman to have my children. About 3 months later, things were quieter, and we hadn't had an argument in a bit. It was our anniversary, so naturally things got romantic. Sometime later, she started throwing up and being sick. We both guessed what came after, but she kept refusing to take the pregnancy test. I told her that we had to know for sure, and she kept being in extreme denial. Just kept telling me that she has the flu. We spent 2 days arguing about this, and I could tell that she was nervous and so against the idea. Eventually, I pressured her enough into taking the test, and as anyone could have expected, it was positive. I was absolutely thrilled, and even though we didn't have a lot of money, well, I didn't really care. I was still very excited. I was grinning ear to ear and laughing and already thinking of names, while she was angry and contemplating crying. I told her, hey, we could make this work and that I'd find a better job and support her. But she flat out told me 10 minutes after taking the test that she wants to get rid of it. I was shocked at how blunt she was, and I never wanted things to get to that. I refused and told her that this was not an option and that we need to think things through, but she threw a fit. Kept on yelling, telling me that she wants to get rid of it and that she would not take no for an answer. It got to a big argument and she said some pretty hurtful stuff. She told me that she did not want some kid to raise and that she would not care about them. She reached new heights by telling me that she was wasting her youth on being married, and that she should not have married so young and wasted away so much of her life. Oh yeah, and that she wasn't going to add a baby to all this to waste more of it. I didn't know she was so resentful, and I told her she did not even have a life to waste in the first place. I told her that she was 23 years old, acting like she's 15 on her parents' couch, not wanting to do anything or take any responsibilities. She didn't care and stormed off to her parents' house. The next day, I got a call from her parents telling me that she would be coming here, and that they don't want her to leave the house and go over to them again. She came back shamefully, and it seems like her parents scolded her and refused to get rid of the baby. So, she told me that she would be keeping the baby, and I was so happy, over the moon with joy. Over the next 3 months, I started going into full dad mode. I built a crib, decorated the second bedroom for the baby, and bought a ton of parenting books. Well, at this point, I start to go to a ton of interviews, and finally found a pretty high-paying job that would allow me to mortgage a home. On the day I got the job, I came back home so excited to tell my wife, and I found her inside bluntly telling me that she got rid of the baby. At that point, I felt my whole life crumbling. All the excitement I had was shattered, and I've never felt so angry before in my life. I yelled and fought, and she just told me that she did not want it, and that she did not care and never did. So I called her parents, who got just as angry as I was, and I told them that I'd be sending her back to them. But they told me that they didn't want her, and that she should stay at my house. I went over to her parents to discuss this, and they told me things that I've never known before. They told me that when my wife was 16, she got pregnant by her best friend's brother, and she also got rid of the baby then, which ruined her relationship with her best friend and her parents. Ever since then, she could not keep a friend, and her parents lost all respect for her. Her parents wanted to keep her in my house as punishment, and I offered the idea of divorce. But my wife went absolutely nuts and told me that if we get a divorce, she'd be living on the streets. So she wanted to stay. Even though she was clearly unhappy, I told her that she would stay, but she would have to follow my every word, and I told her that I would be marrying another woman. So, I married another woman who had no issues with living with another wife, and we actually lived in the same house I mortgaged. My first wife lived at the top floor, while my second wife and I lived at the bottom floor. My first wife started going even crazier, though, and she even attempted to hurt my second wife a number of times. Well, every time I would tell her to leave the home, and she would throw a fit and call me a monster, and that she would be living in the streets. I could see that she simply was not well. I had her stay at the house, and she rarely went outside ever. My second wife got pregnant, and my first wife literally attempted to hurt her and the baby by putting something in my second wife's drink, and we ran to the ER. Ever since that moment, I started treating her very harshly. Since she would not leave the house and we could not get a divorce, I started treating her more like a maid than a wife. She was the one responsible for cooking, cleaning, and she had to keep everything in pristine condition. Anytime she did not want to carry out her responsibilities, I would threaten to kick her out and leave her to fend for herself out there in the open world. Another time, she kept trying to have a fallout between my second wife and I by spreading some misinformation to both of us. She would tell my second wife that I'd be staying at home to do something while I was going out. Another time, I was supposed to be out of town for a couple days, and she told my second wife that I've spent a whole week. So, my second wife went over to her parents' house, and when I came back home 2 days later, I didn't find her. As for the other side, she would tell my second wife lies about me and about other women I was talking to, which led to several trust-related arguments between me and my second wife. At this point, as you could probably guess, I've had enough when I realized that all of these were just lies she came up with. I became extremely strict with her and punished her several times for acting up. Over time, I felt like she was getting crazier and crazier. One time, she starts a fight with the neighbors, and the whole neighborhood watched to the point where she threw stuff at the neighbors. And she broke their window, and they called the cops. I didn't understand her thought process, and I confronted her, telling her that she was just a burden on me now, and that I'm only keeping her inside the house because I know she wouldn't last 2 days outside. I told her how much I hated her for killing all of my passion, for being a father and being so nonchalant about it. That's when she dropped an absolute bomb on me. She told me that the only reason she married me was that she wanted someone to take care of her financially, and that most of the guys she knew about the whole pregnancy and getting rid of it thing from high school, and that they would not accept her. She told me that she married me because I was a pushover who would not give her any grief and would just act like a good husband. She told me that she never liked me back at school, but because I was somewhat of a smart kid, I was her only shot. I realized just how much of a leech she actually is, and I despised her even more for it. I instructed my second wife to treat her like a maid, and she did. I found her constantly berating her for every little thing and humiliating her. One time, we had guests over and she literally called for my first wife as the maid, and when she dropped something, she humiliated her in front of all the guests who laughed at her. She spent that night crying and she started developing a painkiller problem. I told her several times that she can just leave and go find somewhere else to leech off. But for some reason, she would rather live this humiliating life than go and seek out her own life outside. She starts taking pills heavily, and we often found her passed out on the floor at night several times. Things only got crazier from there. One time, we got a call from the local police station that they found my wife in fight with the local pharmacist. We didn't know why, and she flat out refused to tell us on the phone. We kept going back and forth but nothing, and she told us that she was arguing over a prescription medicine the pharmacist refused to give her. And that was that. I thought it was her pill problem, but the police told us that there was no painkillers involved. Something was up. Though I needed to find out what. I kept a close eye on my first wife, who was now a burden on me, as a kid who would have been to her. I still had a shred of care, even though I wished that she would just leave. I kept tracking all her unusual behavior that she was exhibiting because of her alcoholism. We tried to get her help, but she refused, and she just wanted to sit around the house and drink all day. One day, though, I found something interesting in the trash. I found a pregnancy test. At first, I thought it was the old one my second wife had since she was 2 months pregnant, but she told me that it wasn't. What's interesting was that the test was positive. There was only one other person who could have had the test, and instead of confronting her, I called her parents and demanded that they come and talk to her about this. After some arguing, they finally came and I told them everything. They were very intense and yelled at her violently, and she eventually confessed. She was pregnant by the same ex-best friend's brother. We were all furious, and I saw her dad actually slap her across the face so violently that it literally echoed across the house. He swore that he would hurt her even worse for tarnishing his name and honor, and we literally had to hold him back from beating her. We suddenly found my father-in-law calling someone and telling him about the other guy who was the father, and it seemed as if he was getting people to go beat him up. I told her that this was the final straw, and that she can't stay in my house anymore. I kicked her out, right there in front of her parents, and they couldn't even say a thing. They rejected her going back to their house, and she literally was the only one left with her bag and not a single penny to her name. I didn't know what would happen to her, and I did not care. A week goes by, and my second wife gave birth to a baby boy, and I was the happiest dad ever. I kept thinking about my first wife, though, and how all of this could have been avoided if she just had not gotten rid of my baby, and if she held any kind of responsibility, but I didn't care. I was just finally happy and got what I wanted. One day, about a year later, I was out walking in the market when I saw someone who looked vaguely like my first wife in the streets. I looked closer and wow, it really was her, holding a little baby as she was selling vegetables on the street. She was homeless, and it seems that she still did not get a job. I didn't care, however, and I left without even saying a word. So this story was actually absolutely absurd. There were so many points in the story I was like, wow, I kind of feel bad for this woman. But there was also so many red flags. Guys, let me know your thoughts about this story. What exactly would you do once you find out that your wife basically betrayed you in the worst way possible? And that's getting rid of your son without even telling you. The next story we're going to look at today is titled, Am I the A-hole for choosing to go on a trip with my girlfriend instead of taking care of my struggling brother's son? For some context, my 24 male brother Luke, 31 male, and his wife Emma and their son Kyle moved to my city last year because Emma got a new job. They would occasionally ask me to watch Kyle because I worked from home with a very flexible hour. I personally don't like kids at all, but I was happy to do it at the time because I wanted to help them out. It was not that often, maybe once or twice every 2 weeks, and Kyle was very well behaved. Now, the issue started near the end of the last year, when Luke decided to change careers. He was previously working remotely as well, and his new job required him to go to work a lot more often and make substantially less money. This left them depending on me more and more to take care of Kyle. It went from once or twice every 2 weeks to around 3 days out of the week. To make matters worse, Kyle's behavior changed drastically. To be completely honest, I can barely stand the kid anymore. Constantly running around and screaming while I'm trying to work, and just overall being a little craphead. My sister-in-law Emma was over the day picking up Kyle, and made some comments about getting rid of some of the dangerous furniture in my house, like tables with glass edges and stuff so that my home is safer for their son. And even makes a joke about baby-proofing my house because they're planning to have a daughter. Well, this made me very angry, but I did not say a word. The situation, though, it hit a breaking point last Friday when I was talking about the 1.5-week-long trip I was going on with my girlfriend on the 15th of May. Well, me and my girlfriend like to travel somewhere nice at least once a month. We could not the past couple of months because of Kyle, but I promised my girlfriend we would go somewhere exotic for Valentine's. Upon hearing this, they got pretty mad and they were saying who was going to take care of Kyle, that I need to stop these childish trips, and that I need to take more responsibility because I'm an uncle now. Guys, I'm not gonna lie. After hearing this, I absolutely ducking snapped. I said that their demon child is not my responsibility, and I'm not just going to give up my life because they ducked without protection. It got pretty obscene from there, and some horrible things were said. They left and were no longer on speaking terms with me. My parents and Emma's parents are on their side and extremely angry at me for, quote, refusing to pull my weight. At this point, my parents said that this is my duty and I should be sacrificing everything to help them. It's honestly got me really down, and I've cried my eyes out pretty much every day since seeing those messages from my family. I'm starting to wonder if I really should be taking more responsibility. So my question to you beautiful people is this. Am I the a-hole for choosing my trips over my brother and nephew? What's up everybody, Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're enjoying the story. So I managed to find an update for this one deep down. It came out just 6 days ago. It's a pretty short update, but we're going to hop into it now. If you're not subscribed to the channel, take a second right now. Click that subscribe button. And here's your final update. Thank you, everyone, for the comments. After reading through for about an hour, it kinda helped me realize how toxic my relationship is with my family. As many of you mentioned, yes, my brother is the, quote, golden child of the family. Thinking about it now, that favoritism is the main reason I wanted to move away from them so badly in the first place. I had a talk with my brother and my sister-in-law where I apologized for calling their child a demon, and for their little condom remark. They accepted my apology, but they did not apologize to me. Apparently, ours and my sister-in-law's parents were just not telling them, but encouraging them to use me for help the whole time. I told them how exhausted and frustrated I was, and how much this whole crap show was hurting me, and that I would not be watching Kyle anymore, point blank period, and that they need to figure something else out. They did not take it well. At this point, my sister-in-law starts yelling again, and after some arguing, my sister-in-law said that if I would not watch Kyle, the least I could do is pay for his daycare and help him with some of our other expenses, since I have the money to zip off to different countries every month. I was honestly appalled at this point. I would not have minded to help them out financially, but the tone of her voice as she said it was just infuriating. The only thing they heard was that I would not continue helping them. They didn't give a crap about anything else I said, so I just got up and left the house without saying a darn word. I wanted to leave before I completely exploded again, and 10 minutes after I left, my phone started buzzing with them, and my parents and I just put it on Do Not Disturb. I read a lot of comments saying I should go no contact, and I really did not want to have to do that, but they're very clearly not interested in respecting me as a human being, so that's it. I will not be speaking to my family until they want to genuinely apologize to me. So, thank you guys for all the help in the comment section. So there's one very specific comment that got a lot of attention, and I'll read it right now. While the favoritism's obvious, I suspect they made use of the grandparents previously prior to the move. OP says he moved away to get away from his family, and this all started when brother and sister-in-law moved closer to him. I'm sure that they had all decided before the move that OP would be helping out when they get there. They just didn't bother to get his opinion. Now, the family's favoring the son with grandkids because, well, grandkids. As the only single sibling in the family, saw more than a little of that over the years. I'm not sure what OP can do moving forward, though. Tell his parents that if they're so concerned, then they should move closer to help with the children. Negates him moving away in the first place. Move again, question mark? Kinda sucks uprooting his life. What about a job, girlfriend, etc.? Go no contact, question mark? I don't see his family respecting that. I wonder how large his town or city even is. Perhaps a change of address, phone number would be in order, but OP needs to decide if he's ready to make that decision. So guys, let's know what you would do in the comment section down below. Go ahead and add your little bit of details, let's talk about it. And the final story of the day that comes complete with an update is titled, Would I be the a-hole for refusing to babysit my boyfriend's daughter while her mother gets chemotherapy? My boyfriend, he's male, in his mid-30s, has a daughter, 10 years old, with his ex-wife T. The ex-wife is fighting a very aggressive form of brain cancer. Now, a bit of backstory. T and I never did get on well. I met my boyfriend while he was in the proceedings of their divorce, and I think she's always thought we had an affair long before then. She hates me, and so does G. I've been called a homewrecker and many other names since I've met them. Now, my boyfriend's usually very quick to shut down their bullcrap, but he adores his daughter, and still cares about ex-wife since they've been together 15 years and have been friends since childhood. Ever since the diagnosis, he's been the one driving ex-wife to medical appointments and such, and he's asked me a favor to look after his daughter while he's with T, his ex-wife. He knows what a huge favor it is, and he thanked me profusely every single time, and I know how much he needs my help. Everything went to crap a few hours ago when I was asked to bring G, his daughter, back to her mother's house. T starts saying I must be glad she's dying because I can keep a boyfriend to myself now. She said I must be happy because now I get to keep her daughter and pretend she's mine. She said a lot of ugly things and boyfriend didn't do anything to correct her. I just stayed really quiet because, to be frank, I was incredibly shocked and I still am. When we got home, I lost it with him and told him I would not keep his daughter any longer. Not if he allowed T to talk to me in such a manner. He said I'd be a huge a-hole if I went through with it because T has just found out she's only got a few weeks left, and not the months that she's previously thought. Is he right? Would I be the a-hole if I stopped babysitting his daughter? What's up guys, Mr. Reddito here, so we're going to hop into the update for this story right now. Hey guys, I don't know whether someone even remembers my original post, but I received a lot of great advice in the comments and I figured I owe you guys an update. Lots has happened in the meanwhile, so I'll try to keep it short. First, I sat my boyfriend down for a chat as soon as I saw him again, which was the day following our discussion. He agreed that we needed to talk, and told me he was sorry for calling me an a-hole, that he had been so much in shock that he hardly even remembered the whole fight in the first place. I told him I could understand that, and told him I love him, and wanted to be there for him and support him throughout this ordeal. I also added, though, that I would need him to be able to stick up for me in the future, even against his daughter, who would be grieving and in a lot of pain. I told him to think about it and let me know, and also said that I would keep his daughter for as long as he needed me to, independently from his answer. He asked me to marry him right there on the spot. No ring, nothing, but he was crying and it was very sweet, so now we're engaged and relatively happy. Second, well, T passed away a week later. I followed your suggestions and did not see her again. G is living full-time with us now, and I have what I think are not good hopeful news. 10 days after her mother's death, she broke down in hysterics because she wanted her mom. It was incredibly sad to see. She kept yelling insults at me and crying and again yelling at me more, and I was in tears because seeing a child in that much pain is just truly heart-wrenching. So, I intervened before my fiance could say a word. I told G that I could not bear to see her so distressed, and that I would go stay with a friend until she felt a bit better. That I loved her, and I just wanted her to be less sad. She ran to me, she hugged me, and she said 3 words to me: "Don't leave her." We cried together, and I think we might be on the road to healing. Well, that is to say, thank you guys for your feedback. You're pretty awesome. So happy to read the last paragraph of your update, says the top commenter. It's incredibly sad for all of you, and after what T put you through, even though she must have been very distressed to be dying, leaving such a young kid without a mother, you're incredibly strong and good to the core to still handle it the way that you did. And are. I hope you manage to build a strong relationship with G and have an absolutely happy marriage. Not to mention, it was brain cancer, which likely memory loss illness affects a person's personality as they degrade and their disease progresses. I feel so bad for them that they may never know if those words were the disease or how she actually felt, because both, well, are awful. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed these 3 stories. If you're not subscribed to the channel, take a second, click that subscribe button. It really helps support me, and I appreciate you guys doing that. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you tomorrow.